What's up, everybody? Kenji Shimada here. Hope you're doing well. Another beautiful Tuesday. Thank you for joining me today for a 1,000-year plan. Here to talk about foundations of the future. I know we've got to think big and big right there, but more so, as I developed the show, I realized the conversation is surrounding what are the foundations we're building at the moment, what are the conversations that we're having that's realistically going to become architecture for the future to come. For those that are obviously in the tech world, you're building these software systems, they become the architecture that slowly outputs what we see front facingly, and how important it is to delve into the back end. So, as above, so below, we're going to be diving into the back end with a few conversations that we have on this show. Today, it's going to be a solo episode because I feel there's a few important things that I would love to share, talk about, and discuss as a few iterations are happening on the brand sphere for myself, but also I don't think I've given enough context. I think for everyone that's in AI at the moment, using their tools, context is absolutely key. The why these things exist and the landscape they exist in seems to be the most critical. So I gave a bit of context to the 1,000-year plan, and I guess a conversation as to why I'm in the current brand sphere at the moment, the storytelling space, and what are like a few functional elements that I really love to go into with brand architecture, and what I love to play with when I'm working with clients and I'm working with some people to really pull out their brand ecosystem, the feels, and what are the narratives that's going to come out of it. Because the more I realize, the story cannot be in dot points. The story needs to be in like a narrative structure. The narrative structure I have found out resonates the most with people. People can buy into a narrative, people can buy into a story. And so constructing it in like a nice cohesive story structure seems to be really helpful. And it seems to get to that story, there seems to be a few foundational tools that help to build it and bring it to life. So I'm going to go into a few of those brand architecture pieces soon. Once again, this is just from my perspective. This is not brand holy. This is just Kenji Shimada talking about what he enjoys and the things that make stories exciting for me, and also why I think stories are so valuable right now. I know in the VC venture capital community, stories are critical when they're getting pitches from startup founders. So I've talked to many people that are in that space, and they say stories, 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 stories. If you can't tell a good story, you're probably not going to be able to raise capital, right? If you don't have a good story, then it's hard to get staff to buy in. If you don't have a good story, do you wake up as motivated as you would like in the morning to get to work? What are we fighting for? And so for Kenji Shimada, Kenji's World and Rolling Mic Studio, and here in the 1,000-year plan, it is bringing those stories to life, bringing that deeper narrative. This is what 1,000-year plan is about, the foundations for the future. And for those that are in the innovation space, I know there are people in the tech space. There's orbit to orbit guys that are out there, doing payloads out into space right now. There's just some cool tech, Fleet Guru, that's coming out to really, they're going to change the whole fleet management space. And people that don't even know what fleet management is, it actually doesn't matter, because it's going to affect your life one way or another with the up and coming rising with fleets and stories. And this is going to become infrastructure. These things are going to become the foundations for our future. And I think, as an example, companies like Fleet Guru that are really working hard to build their value ecosystem inside of the organization, coming from senior leadership and going boots on ground into the team. I think it just shows more and more that you can feel the difference of people that do that versus people that don't. And this is your brand, right? Every single day you rock up to an event, you rock up to an environment, you go to a lunch, you are representing your story, which is your brand. So you can either choose to consciously understand the brand and live it actively, or you can become passive, or you be passive in how your brand is, put out to the world, shared to the world. And I'm on my own personal journey. I'm not perfect in any of this nature, but really trying to uncover and break down what brand is, the impact of brand. What is what is brand equity, right? What is this value that it maintains? It seems so intangible at times, yet the power of it is highly tangible. And I'm noticing, where does capital flow is a lot of times a good story. So Without further ado, I'm going to go into a few of these elements of brand architecture that I find super valuable. And it seems cheesy. I know it's really basic and super cheesy. This is not going to be anything that you don't already know. But without these elements, I don't think you actually have a good story. And another reason I love going into, the brand sphere is that I love having those deeper philosophical existential conversations that maybe in every other part of business it might be, not as important, or it might seem like a quote time waster. But I personally love those conversations. I love, what are you here to do, right? What is the purpose of your product service? Like, why? Why is it here? Well, what is it? Why does it exist in the first place? And I'm going to go into this critical ecosystem here, which is once again not new at all, but I love those questions of why. And I think if you don't ask why, if you don't take a moment, if you don't think strategically about these things, it's like tech debt. You pay it sooner or later. I know I'm paying it with a few other things right now, but if you can pay it up front, you can front load the pain, you can front load the journey, you can deep dive into it, and you can really work with people that can help you bring it alive. And right now I'm having some great partnerships, and I'm working with the team at Hover Creative with my brand structures, and it's been awesome. It has been absolutely awesome to work with professionals that can bring these brands to life, and working with people that can maybe give you more creative ideas and direction that you would have thought. So, super simple. I'm going to start this functional central point here. Values. Oh my God, he's talking about values, that boring thing, that sits on a wall getting dusty every so often. I know it's cheesy. And I also like to relate values with principles as well. Like, what are the underlying principles that go through? We could talk about your organization, but we'll first and foremost focus on you as the founder, right? What is the values that you hold foundationally at the core of who you are, what you do, without maybe the business at the beginning, right? What's important and necessary for you to survive in this world? Because guess what? Stand for something or fall for anything. Once again, this is why I love brand. I love stories, because if you don't have values, if you don't have something that's going to bind the story, there is no story, right? And at the core of it lies your values. What are you here to stand for? And in direct correlation, it allows you to expand upon what you stand against. So, what are your values? And I've realized that the storyline architecture, values sit as the central nodes that move through your ecosystem, right? For me, I've got freedom through faith, focus, and fortitude, right? Faith, focus, fortitude. Why are these things important? Why is faith important? I need to know that I have faith in something greater than I that's moving me towards, my pursuit and pathway. And that gives me strength in times of when I am down. And if I can't feel like I have, the fortitude, if I feel like I don't have the quote motivation to get myself through, and the reasons why that faith is critical is because I feel, I have my own dreams and ambitions that I'm trying to go towards, and a lot of that is intangible. But I've got a lot of other people, they've got their values of truth, they've got honesty, integrity, right, fairness. And you might even be able to hear this question, which is the next piece of the equation, is why do they exist in the first place? Right? Why do these values exist in the first place? That's like another next step back. And this is a conversation that you need to sort of sometimes have with your brand. And this is why people sometimes don't like to have this chat, is because it feels like you're going backwards. But you have to go into origins first to go into your future, right? The paradox exists. So go back. Why do these values exist inside of your landscape, your personal existence, first and foremost? How do they come to be? Because I bet you the reason why they're there is because they've come from, origin of what we might call pain and pleasure, right? So certain things caused a pain, which then leads you to seek a pleasure, right? And a pleasure, hopefully, is a more fulfilling life, a more stable life. And this origin source constitutes into this circle, middle circle here. And for those that are listening, I've got a little middle circle here that's got why they exist in the first place, with the origin and destination heading out, with like heading in and heading out. Because that functionally is the story. The value came about because either something happened in the world that you did not like, or you did like, and you want to either maintain or stay away from, right? Which is this: what are you fighting for? And what are you fighting? And I know sometimes people don't want to be like, I'm fighting. I don't want to use that language of fighting. That's fine. You can use striving if you like. You can use different language that, works with the model that you exist in. But I like fighting. I've come from a martial arts perspective and I love that whole warrior mentality. And maybe it doesn't serve me at times, but every day, you're fighting for good, for the things that are good for you. Once again, I don't want to say that's what everyone's doing, but you're fighting for what you believe in this world. So what are you fighting? What are you fighting for? And remember this conversation about brand architecture, right? Because this storyline and this narrative is really, really important. This architecture exists. And trust me, if you ever were to do, because like with my brand architecture, I just want to break it down into one page. Simple, one pager. What am I fighting? What am I fighting for? What's the values that kind of is the spine of this whole story? Because each piece of those values are going to orchestrate the next step of the story. And that's going to give you that destination, like in this other image, right? What's the origin? What's the destination? Now, this is, as you can probably already hear, a lot of these organizations talking about your vision, your mission, your principles, all this sort of stuff, right? A lot of the times it lives on a wall. It lives on a wall, dot points. Are we bought in? Right? Is the people that I bring into this organization bought in? Am I bought in every single day? Where does quote motivation come from? Is the motivation coming from a place of being bought into the vision, right? And this is why I think brand is so critical, like really architecting your brand from the start, because this creates buy-in from first and foremost you to really dedicate yourself to the cause. Building a business just ain't easy. It is not easy. It's not going to be a simple task that happens overnight. It's a whole 10 years to become an overnight success sort of thing. Business is hard, finding the right customers, your audience, getting your operations intact, getting the team members onboarded, being a leader, going from an operator to a leader, if this is the life path you have. These are all really massive journeys, really beautiful, like personal development journeys as well in my own mind, I think. And so, but if you can't share that story, because guess what? Whether you like it or not, this is the whole thing. You have a brand, you have a story, and you are leaving in an unspoken message, or maybe spoken, but an unspoken message to every environment that you enter into and you walk away from, right? There is an essence that is left there every single time. This is your brand. Please do not forget. Every time someone represents you and they're coming from your organization, they themselves are representing the same story. And is there cohesion across this narrative? Pretty critical through line right there. Is there cohesion across this narrative? And is there cohesion through this organization? Is this question that we are also sort of asking. Because if you're bought into the story, really simple, articulable, then is it a lot easier to know that people are in their own right trying to achieve that same goal as you? You might look at it and be like, interesting, Sammy, why are you doing that like that? Instead of be like, you're off track, mate. If you can trust, trust is huge. If you can trust, okay, this person is bought into the story. This person is bought into the narrative. Okay, I trust. How are you trying to achieve this goal or get to this destination or achieve milestone 1 before we're getting there, right? And so this is architecting the brand from the get-go. Where is it all going? And, I always say, don't be afraid to go into the philosophical, right? Please. I love the philosophical. And do you know who else loves the philosophical? Is the people helping you create your brand in terms of the partnerships that you're going to be working with, creative studios or, graphic design or, people making your videos that's going to make a soundtrack for you. The philosophical has feeling. This is what I've got on the image for those that are listening. Philosophical equals feeling, right? In that philosophy, an artist and a creative is going to listen to your story and say, ooh, I can hear like, tones of blue. I can almost feel like a wash of orange coming through, or like an accent of purple, or like, because all these colors mean something, right? Your color palette means something. They all stand for something. We're deep psychological beings. Like our psyches are programmed to interpret symbols, right? That it's the subconscious is a highly symbolic functioning. I was going to call it an organism, but it's just whatever you want to call it. But at the back of the brain, it's always just interpreting symbols, right? This is why they say, so much of communication is body language, right? It's the body language. It's a symbolic representation of how the person is. Are they upright? Are they tight? Are they loose? Are they relaxed? Do they have these, characteristics that affirm our understanding of happy, sad, mood, right? And this is all the same with your color representations, your font representations, how your videos are coming together. And like I said, I'm not perfect at this. I'm still just sharing what I'm learning at the moment, but having the story critical at the beginning, but having the philosophical is critical for feeling. And if I was to take the next step, the feeling is critical for color compositions and direction and artistic direction for where you want to take your company, your website flows, your business cards, like all these things, they're all part of your brand pack. And anyone that has spent any time, effort, energy, or money into brand knows this. I'm preaching to the choir here for sure, obviously from different ends of the spectrum. I'm sure a lot of people agree, disagree with what I'm saying, but for what I'm finding more and more, story, just that one page of story that is built upon a simple structure of your values, right? And why those values exist in the first place. And then that gives you your origin destination. That gives you those guiding directions. Pretty easy. We're going from here to here. Okay. I'm just onboarding someone today, and that was a big part of my onboarding. I was like, I'm going from here to here. I know this middle is messy right now. I know there's a lot of elements. This is why I have you, trying to get you to help me get from here to here. But if you understand this general picture, the tone should be, we should agree on it. Is it soft? Is it hard? Is it professional? Is it this? Is it classy? And because this origin story and this destination is going to clearly define your audience, right? And once again, if you're raising capital, you better know your story. Story is so easy. And like when I was talking to Jason Atkins, from Taurus Club, and he was discussing how capital raising is a journey, right? People put so much in their pitch deck. So many people are trying to raise capital right now. Like, awesome. Like, let's go. Innovation Australia, let's go. But it all doesn't happen in one session. The first session is just, what's the story, right? Pain problem that you're solving, who's the audience, who you're trying to capture in terms of attention, who you're trying to talk to, what is this solution really solving? A really captivating, simple story. This is what I say, start with your values, right? Start with your values. Your values are innate. You live them anyway, one way or another. Every single day you've got your values. So what are they? And how do they represent themselves in the physical environment of your brand structure, but also your products and services? Because this should also guide, your roadmap of how you want to deliver, not what you will deliver. That will sort of differ, but how you deliver is going to be as important as what you deliver to the market, right? And once again, the AI world is coming more and more, right? The AI world is coming, and there's a lot of things coming. More people are going to want to have a product or service that is understanding of them, hears them, recognizes their pain. Everybody wants to be heard, right? Everybody wants to be heard. So first and foremost, you got to listen to yourself. You got to go back, hear that story of where you've come from. Once again, this is why I love it. You get to have a moment of reflection, introspection, do it in a dark corner if you want to, where no one else is going to hear. Write down that story, that deep, dark story that you've come from, and the bright light that you're sort of walking towards, and the things that make you tick along the way, and then you sort of find out, oh, well, this product and service came to me at this point because I went through this very experience and I ended up at this point, which is why now I am extrapolating it further to give value to people that have felt this same pain. And I've gone through market iterations as well. And consistency. Once again, I've fallen a few times. I've made the error of inconsistency through brand, and I'm still making those errors, and I'm still trying to learn. But I don't want to be afraid of making errors as well, right? I don't want to be afraid of not putting something out there. One of my greatest learnings in life is it's sometimes easier to figure out what you don't want than what you do want, because we can want so many things. What you need is very different, and what you don't want is very clear. So to go through this iterative process, and this is why I say start with your values, start with your principles, start with these foundational elements that made you who you are. And I bet you're going to have some awesome stories to tell. And in terms of content, I got Rolling Mic Studio. What's up? Represent. You're going to see some launch coming out soon as well. You'll see some launch posts coming out more and more. I'll be rolling out officially May 4th. May the 4th be with you, with Rolling Mic Studio. I'm excited to share the stories. I'm excited to share not only my stories, but the stories of, the people I get to work with. I get to meet boots on ground and have those conversations. Going to be at Sunrise Festival this weekend, chatting to a whole lot of people in the innovation sphere. Started basketball on Friday, people that are trying to make an impact through community, through building a network. And all of this is, it's a story. Everyone is buying into a story. There is, collective brands coming together to work in partnership with a bigger brand. And it's all stories. Like, if we really look into it, I loved how Demelza Green from Patient Zero, she was talking about one of the skills that will not, go away in the future of AI will be storytelling, right? We're all here to participate in a story because every one of us lives a story every single day. And so I won't bore you with too much, but I just wanted to really hone in just some of these basic fundamentals that I'm still learning with the brand ecosystem, what's helping me greatly to articulate a lot of things for myself, and how it helps me to make my way through client work, my work, and being able to pass on information to other people. I think that's a huge one with brand architecture, is what are you passing on? Because you don't want to, like, of course you have to pass over SOPs and all these sort of things, but sooner or later it gets quite convoluted. You want to give people agency. If you have a brand architecture, and we call it the brand manifesto, if you have your manifesto, I just feel that makes trust so easy. It makes, living in the same world easier. Like, are we agreeing on this or not? Do we have agreements on these values? Do we have agreements on this story? Like, are we bought into this narrative? Because if we ain't, awesome, man, love your work, shake hands and let's go separate ways. But if we are, I'm willing to go to the ends of the moon, right? If we believe in this together, because you're going to spend so much time with people that you work with, right? This is why brand, like, think about brand, think about what is your brand? Why is brand important? I'm here to continuously share this message on, obviously LinkedIn is the main platform, but for those that are listening out there on Spotify as well, and on my YouTube, it's like, this is a story. It's a story we carry with us every single day. And for those that aren't in business, like, you are still representing you every single day. It's pretty good to think about what your values are, what you stand for, what you don't stand for. Right? Like, what are you going to be fighting for? What are you fighting? There is as simply put, who is my enemy, right? Once you know your enemy, it's pretty easy. Like, that thing, whether it's a thing inside of yourself you're trying to overcome, something you see, an injustice in the world, or like an untapped market, you see loved ones or a community of people that you can resonate with, that you're like, damn, I really resonate with those people and I can see they're going through a pain. I would love to fight to help alleviate a bit of that pain, right? We can't ever solve every single problem in the world, but we can really apply ourselves effectively to a few problems. And so, brand stories, that was today's episode on 1,000-year plan, foundations of the future. I'm excited. Like I said, I will be down in Sydney, Sunrise, Startup Basketball, Pillars from Currents, a few things going down. We're going into May already. This is crazy. Time's flying. And so thank you so much for joining me, for all that have listened to this episode as well. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you learned a little bit about, I guess, what I'm working on. Think about your architecture of story. What is it? What do you find more valuable in building out your brand? Like, what's super pivotal for you to make the most amount of impact, right? Simplify to amplify is like my mission. How do I simplify this to amplify my impact every single time? And this is why I love being in that brand space, because I think it just has max impact in terms of showing up every day. I think, yeah, it's not an operational thing. It's not an SOP, but I think that showing up every day is huge. Like, I had a Tuesday mornings at the Run Club, and then also the Tali Tech Walk as well. But just showing up, that's all I need to do. Once I show up, the run happens, even with this show, when I show up, it happens. Like, that power of just arriving each and every time to the task that we're here to do, just showing up and saying that I will participate is 90% of the battle for me anyway. The how, the how and what will unravel itself. But, that that power to get you there. That's what James Clear would talk about in Habit Change. Is he discussed this lady that was training as a professional athlete. Every day she would go to the gym, do her workout, her warm up, warm downs, etc. She was like, my habit is not to exercise. That's not the habit. She lived in New York. The habit was to get in the cab, grab her shoes, and get in the cab. That's the habit. What's the small action that you can take that's going to make a huge impact? And this is why I personally love to go into stories. I love to go into, not to get lost in it, but my own story. Why does this exist? That helps sort of reshape my present moment, make peace with myself more. What are the pains that maybe still hold me back? I wouldn't be able to have this video conversation today if I hadn't made peace with a few other things within myself. I'd still have that doubt that I don't have anything to share. I don't have a story worth putting out to the world. But, when I put it out, like the exercise of putting it out itself, I find highly enjoyable, and I love sharing. And I think a lot of people out there, I think everyone out there, you would love sharing as well, because you all got something beautiful to share. And I would love to hear from all of you. So stories, brand. Love you all. 1,000-year plan. Going to keep it short, sharp, and sweet for the day. Thank you so much for joining me. Much appreciated. Like I said, YouTube, Spotify, check me out. All the links are going to be there. The website will be up soon for 1,000-year plan. This is more of a movement than just a show. This is the voice and the anchor for those that are here to be movers, not the moved. Let's get it. Faith, focus, and fortitude. Get some. Enjoy your Tuesday, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Peace.